Good evening and welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Today we have on Marco. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. How about yourself? It's good to be here.
I'm glad we finally did it, right?
Yeah.
Marco is a fantastic drummer. If I don't know
Who told you that?
who told you that. Probably the 150 albums you're probably on right now.
Oh,
You probably have over 100 albums now, right? You played on about a
a
lot.
lot of albums. There must be like hundreds of albums or thousands, that I'm on. And my solo catalog, is around probably 100 or 150 or something, with my bands included. But well, other people go to work. I make music, right? It's
Well, it's good to be people. We have a reputation, and that's why obviously, you're a working musician and a real good drummer.
Thank you.
What we're here for now, like how I got more just I listened to other projects you did, but I wasn't aware of how much you were on. I think that happens. I think there's like a handful of drummers to be considered prog type-ish. I don't know how you label it. You know what I'm saying? Drummers that do a lot of bands that you don't realize.
Yeah.
And you're like and you're in that handful of them, I'm like, I didn't know you did that. Perfect example would be I came across The Sea Within.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, right. I almost forgot.
I was like, and here's the thing, I was listening to, I was like, oh, this is really great. And how like on iTunes or whatever you listen to streams, you don't always see like, it's not like with an album, you can look at it and I like to really get into it. If you're streaming, I'm like, oh, what's this? It comes in my recommendation. I listen to it, I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And I listened to it for a while or whatever. And then when I sat down and I'm like, whatever, I'm looking at the people in it. I'm like, that's the singer? That's the drummer? Like, you know what I mean?
That happens. Yeah, that's true. It's like a lot of kind of things, that that I get hired for or asked for to join or something, and then I do it, because I love it. And it's like people think always, oh my God, he's on all these albums, but do you actually sleep or something? I'll go like, yeah, absolutely, I do. It seems, it always seems so much, but the thing is, I have my studio set up here always up and running, and so when I have something that I'm booked for or that I'm writing, I can immediately translate it because I have all my settings. I don't need to travel for this, for example. So for example, yesterday I did like a great production with Benjamin Croft. He's like a great piano player. And Billy Sheehan is on the album as well. Simon Phillips, my dear friend, is on the album as well. But this I'm kind of doing from the very, chair I'm sitting at here right now.
The epicenter. Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't really take that long then. So I invest like maybe 2 or 3 hours, maybe sometimes 4 to 5 hours a day to record or write music or both. And at the end of the day, all of a sudden you have like all these CDs you're on and you go like, oh my gosh, how did that happen? But that's how that really kind of works. With The Sea Within though, that was like a proper band setting. We recorded together actually in London of all places, and then did like a few shows. That was actually quite fun. It was a cool album, I think. Yeah.
The interesting bunch of people. I just stumbled to it actually recently for some reason, but
Yeah.
Are you guys gonna do more of that? Maybe is it kind of left like are your projects kind of like left open to kind of?
Well, it depends exactly on the calendar, as well.
Yeah.
And some releases are become projects and some become bands. So what I'm really concentrating on is right now my main bands are like the Aristocrats, then Max Stein and Minnemann, thing I'm doing with Max Stein together, which is really fantastic. So it's safe to say that I'm concentrating on these things, and those have priority of releases that feature my name and my compositional input.
Well, yeah. The Aristocrats actually is my gateway drug to you initially to really identify who like you as a musician over the past few years. The three of you guys together, the energy. I mean, you guys obviously recognize the nucleus of the power of the three of you guys.
Oh, well, we played for so many years together. There's like a chemistry, but the chemistry was right there from the start.
That's what I'm saying. It was the perfect storm is what it was. I mean, you guys were all the best at what you do. And then when you get together, you're all good. And being professionals, you're welcome. But being professionals at this level, you could still have done something really great and nobody would know the difference. But beyond that, it's the chemistry that you guys read each other musically, which allows you guys to keep making these monster albums,
I guess, there's like, how it sometimes is. You kind of walk into a room and you sometimes don't know who's in the room, and you kind of sometimes see the crowd that is in there and you just want to walk away and go like, okay, I'm not having any of that. Or you walk into the room and you feel immediately comfortable and you want to sit down at the table and have a conversation. And that was pretty much, what happened with the Aristocrats, when Guthrie joined Brian and I. There was like, some magic in the room that we hadn't felt before. And well, especially in that case, so when we started playing the songs, there was like a certain lock there that was like just fantastic. And yeah, here we still are a decade later.
And actually, we have a new album talking about coming out.
Right, that's right. It's your album with the Primus Orchestra.
You say it way cooler than I would have. For people to understand, it's PRIMUZ.
Yes, exactly. MUSZ.
See that? See, I didn't even say it on there. Oh, yeah, right. My bad.
Yeah. That's like, that's very Polish. And since I'm 1/4 Polish, because I was born in Germany and raised, and my mom is half Polish. She grew up, actually, she was born in Poland, and so I have a history with that country. And it's only ironic in the greatest sense that these wonderful people decided to do a cover version of one of our songs, and that's how we heard about those guys. Mm-hmm. And one of our managers of the band, Riccardo Capelli, I think he found that online, goes like, "Hey guys, check this out." And we were like, "Hang on, this is really good." So we thanked them. And then, we kind of got in touch, and all of a sudden the idea kind of came out to do more. And then if we do another song or maybe an EP, and they were very enthusiastic, and so were we when we heard the results. And then we decided to do an entire album with them. So,
and I've heard it a little early. It's really good. It's like really good. Well, you never know, because you get other ingredients in an orchestra. Sometimes you're like, is it just a band with an orchestra behind them? Like it doesn't. Sometimes they don't always play well. It can sit well, but it doesn't always like. They play to each other. It works as a unit, and not just two separate pieces doing a song.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of one of those things, that you have to kind of really try to incorporate it and form like a meal that is kind of digestible and also feels cohesive. So that was also like a thing that we were very aware about. So kind of not to do the orchestra against the band, but the orchestra with the band. That's why also the album is called the Aristocrats with the Primus Orchestra. So and
it's special, and that's why it stands out, because there are some other metal acts that I like that have done the orchestra things, and they use it, and it feels like it's more like an accent on certain things, and it's a background piece, like an extra instrument. This is incorporated in the music, so it's like having a lot of people as one person being a new member in your band, which is totally different than what you hear.
I'm glad that you clocked that, because the arrangements changed, and so it is really a collaborative how to say, like, event, especially with Wojtek, the arranger for the orchestra and conductor. So whatever he brought into it is like absolutely legit and also embedded into the music. And that's I guess why we kind of continued with that project, so to speak, and decided to kind of make a whole album out of it. When we saw how it came together, it was like, okay, we don't want to do another kind of thing, that you hear where people kind of just add strings and
right. And it's nice, and but it's not you guys. And so when I heard you guys were doing it, I was like, oh, well, I know the albums you guys have put out, so right. You guys got something up your sleeve. And then when I got the preview of it, I was like, oh yeah, I see now.
Like it.
You've raised the bar now. I think a lot of the bands are gonna have to start incorporating a little bit different to their songs. Not having the bands learn their songs. You guys changed it a little bit more.
Well, it is kind of also like an interesting concept, really, because we are known as a trio, which is very bare bones, so you have like those three instruments mainly featured. And for us, to say like, okay, we're going to do now the opposite and break exactly that rule and kind of, show up with like a big ass orchestra, which I think is fantastic. So that also gave us a lot of boost or joy to kind of listen to those compositions and see how they could really sound like, in a setting like that. And that actually worked, because, for example, the songs that I write, I mainly, a lot of times, let's put it that way, write for orchestra. You hear this on my solo albums or on things when I write like more like vocal driven music as well. I always have like, multiple guitars in it, keyboards, some string arrangements or horns. So for me, this was just a joy kind of listening to that particular production. And I have to admit, writing for the Aristocrats, always when that happens, you concentrate on writing mainly for the three instruments and what you can translate with the band. But I do have a lot of these things in the background of my head where I go like, I could add actually a string arrangement here or a horn arrangement. And then you go like, no, Marco, let that go. Do this for your solo album, and kind of stick to your thing. Sometimes it succeeds, sometimes it doesn't. But it is just therefore like, more so a pleasure to hearing, what those guys did with it and go like, yep, absolutely. That's how it can sound as well. It would be kind of painful to go out on the road though, because that would kind of break the bank.
You can never be able to, right? Yeah, really.
There would be something, right? You know, traveling with like a few tour buses and having like a whole orchestra on board. Would be great to do like maybe 1 or 2 events. So that would be great. Yeah,
that could be fun for them. Yeah, and I don't think the orchestra are touring type of people too. I think you have two different types of animals. You know, you can be a touring musician, you don't become an orchestra person. You know, that's
usually how that works. It's like basically when people then take the local orchestras to the city they kind of play in, and they're already kind of prepared, and then they kind of show up in the music.
And they're part of that city's orchestra, and they may have special projects, and they train with that orchestra or doing events for that orchestra. They're not out there. I mean, they train hard, but they're not traveling. They have their own beds at night, which is different than.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's like, you know, a whole dedication. It's almost like it's almost like a day job, isn't it? You know, like, you know, coming with an orchestra together and then kind of reading and doing this stuff. It's like, you know, what people do in Las Vegas sometimes, right? Like playing in Cirque du Soleil shows or something like that.
They put a lot of time to it. So you are a multi-instrument, so you play a lot of different instruments. You're not just a drummer.
Yes, I can clearly actually say that. That's true. Yeah.
And you play,
but I can't do anything else. I can't cook you a proper meal. No, it's okay.
If I was hanging out with you, I wouldn't be asking you to cook. I'd bring some food. Exactly, we can listen to some music.
I cook some music. Here we go. Get some ingredients. And
when you're primarily coming up with your ideas, what are you writing with? Are you coming up with like the melody? Are you picking a particular instrument to start on? Are you using a computer? Like
it comes from different angles, you know. So usually it happens when I kind of have one of my guitars, and then I kind of, you know, just noodle around a bit, and all of a sudden there's a riff I really like, or like, you know, some chord structure, and I go like, oh, and then I have like a melody already in my head, either way for an instrumental piece or for a vocal driven piece. And then I translate it, you know, and then I start kind of working on it, and then I add later on the drums to it, and then I add the bass to it, and then like all the other ingredients that, you know, spices and things that kind of form the songs and bring it to life. But it also can happen from a completely different angle. I'm writing on a song for the next Arisrocats album already, and that one came totally groove oriented. So it was basically like a thing I was playing in a drum solo. I thought like, hang on, this is really cool. And then I heard a bass line inside of my head and a melody and some kind of guitar stabs, and I was like, oh. And then I kind of started writing the guitar riff. And usually how that sometimes works with these things, I have like my iPhone or my computer ready, and then I start recording those things right away, and then elaborate on that one, right? You know, so but that new song I'm just writing it. I think I might finish it actually today. It was completely drum driven, and then and the rest came on top. And it was perfect for an Arisrocats song, you know, because it features really our elements, you know. And since we're all like songwriters, and each of us brings like 3 songs, you know, per album into the mix. Yeah, it was only a fair assessment to kind of do so. But yeah,
so that's how it works. You each bring a couple inch songs in to do that.
Yeah, we basically have this rule. It's more a fun rule. It's not like, you know, kind of
rules. That's so in rock and roll.
Yeah, it really is. We have this thing where we go, okay, each of us brings like 3 songs to the table, and since our songs can be quite lengthy, it definitely 9 songs will definitely make a whole record with the Arisrocats. Right. And so we decided that each of us brings in 3 songs. Doesn't have to be, but it automatically now happens. We started it from the get-go and kind of kept the concept going. And each of us is also the producer for our individual songs. So that means, what is great of it, you kind of avoid possible or potential trouble that could happen, you know, which never really happened with us in the studio. But you know how it is when somebody brings in 10 songs and the other person only 2, and then somebody gets butthurt or something like that. So we don't have that. So we play each other's songs, and the writer is the producer at the same time. So it's an interesting chemistry, but it absolutely works.
So clearly you guys to add to them. Well, it's really great. It just almost feels like it's like with the original rule of what communism or socialism is really supposed to be, but it never really plays out the way it's supposed to be, the original something. My point is for it to work out in a paper, but in theory. But you say you're the drummer, and then you know the guitar. Obviously, the guitar player is like, you know, Guthrie's like one of the best guitarists out there. Like,
oh yeah.
So how are you bringing in, like, you guys are the best of each of you do on your own things besides playing other instruments. So to bring that to other people and say, hey, this is what I think. At that point, is there more pliable, the more for them
You
to
mean
put their own parts in.
writing for each other, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is absolutely. Look, what we do, we already kind of write with each other in mind. So that's usually how that rolls. And so what happens is, like, when I kind of, for example, write a song and I have already kind of the riff, the main theme, for example, is written out. Yeah, then that has to be played that way. But I won't talk Guthrie, for example, into his guitar tone. I would kind of give like a suggestion or something, or like, hey, this is how I did it on the demo. Do your own thing around it, or whatever you hear. And this part is written out. The other one can be absolutely modified, or here's a spot for a solo. Do your thing, and that's really how that rolls, and obviously they both do beautiful, wonderful things, but it's the same when they write for me. There's like, usually a drum part that is like programmed, but those are guidelines. It's the same when I write, for Brian, and I have like the bass line. I give certain suggestions, and then he beautifully comes up with his own style and sound. But this is how that really rolls. I think there must be some albums where we also released, I think on the DVD, we had a few demos that were released in the extra section. So if anyone's curious, go to that extra section.
Interesting, because I like to ask how people write songs. Sometimes they have a guitar laying around and they say it's a melody. Some people are like, can't do it. I just have to wood shit every day. Like, everyone has a different. Some people are like, I just can't do it. Till it comes to me. A year could go by. So this is very different.
Yeah,
very diplomatic.
Yeah, I know.
You bring your skeleton of it in, and everyone kind of goes from there, which is crazy.
It is. Yeah, but it works.
No, it does. The other thing I was thinking of, I've been talking to a lot lately, and you perfect one of these. A lot of drummers, and a lot of people have been saying this lately, when they drum and they play guitar, they find that the drumming is very rhythmic when they play their guitar. Do you feel like, because the type of drummer you are, do you feel it's really an influence on how you play the guitar and the riffs you write?
Yeah, vice versa, actually, to be very honest, because I take influences from all instruments, and it makes your awareness of placement of notes, but also like the musicality, like a little stronger. So you get more aware of things, So when I play a drum groove and I really like to have featured that element, then I'll definitely make sure that I sit on top, with the instruments in a very tight or also sometimes playful way, or textures, like a painting, where you go like, okay, I let this drum groove shine, so I play like maybe white notes here, but let the bass accent certain things or groove with the drums. Now, the other way around, when I start writing something from guitar or piano, then I don't want anything to interfere with the certain beauty of the riff that comes up. Okay. So you start to learn to stay out of the way, right?
So you're more of a songwriter that's just really good at a lot of instruments, and those are your paintbrushes to kind of go. Because like some saying, there's some drummers that are really good. I think, stepping back, the conversation I think initially started from somebody who was talking about Dave Grohl, drummer and guitar player, and then I don't know if he said it or someone else said it, and they started talking about, if you listen to the rhythm, a lot of the guitar playing, you pick it up, it's different. And I started listening to other drummers that were playing guitar. I'm like, I kind of hear that now. I don't know if it's just me if I'm hearing it now, because that's why it's interesting. But you're very proficient with these other instruments. Not that these other guys aren't either. Yeah. But you're clearly songwriting for a lot of different bands.
Yeah. To me, it's like, when the instruments the instrument I'm writing on is really kind of, the source and becomes the source. And it's like, very important. I'm not using it just as a template. I mean it then, it's like, so that riff is legit, and I want to kind of, and that's, thanks for saying that, but that's kind of embedded into my life already on my musical upbringing. So I always listened with ears of a songwriter, and never really of a technical player. Even though, I do some drum releases here and there, sure, then I kind of present some fireworks or so, some independence kind of thing. Of course, if I'm sitting here and somebody asks me a question, I'm happy to provide that. But when you hear my albums and how I write, it is never for the technicality. It's always for the music, which can be technical or sometimes very wide and open and calm. So I guess, those two facets, I really kind of like to feature. For example, that new release I just did with singer-songwriter Kendall Yates. She is great. She has like a lot of space in her music. And we started doing this production where we started to co-write actually as well, so she brought like, in songs, and it was really just with acoustic guitar and vocals, and there was like a lot of space to paint, you know, and to fill, but carefully, right? So I kind of added some parts and textures, some other melodies. So we arranged a little bit, and then Alex Lifeson joined in for like one song as well. And I thought it came out really beautifully, and that was exactly the opposite, for example, of what we do with the Aristocrats, almost, you know, because I was at first concerned, you know, how people would react hearing me play such things, because it went straight into like a desert vibe Americana, like a dark, haunting feeling, which I like a lot.
Right.
And so I was prepared for the onslaught where people go like, hey, what the hell are these guys doing now? You know, but they loved it. Everybody, most comments were like, you know, so beautiful. Go like, wow, great piece of music, great vibe, this and this. And that gave me and also Candle a lot of confidence, you know, in that what we're doing is right. And also just, it was a statement that I really liked, you know, to be proven, to go like, look, people are sometimes not as silly or boxed in as you think they are. They get it as well, you know. So and that was the beauty of it, because it, especially in an area like prog music, jazz or something, you know, there are a lot of the, you know, fusion heads, you know, who always kind of think like, oh, it has to be like that, you know, which is kind of so funny, because prog, jazz, fusion is actually designed to be multifaceted. Oh, right. You know what I mean? But then people kind of go into one niche, some, and go like, you know, for the technicality, or for the pompousness of it, or like songs have to be that and this way. And I thought it was so beautiful when I released like that 3-track EP, that we got so much love for it, that people were like, whoa, this is actually really cool. And I didn't expect
How'd you approach it with having Alex come in playing guitar? Like, how'd you approach having someone come in the studio to do that part?
Well, Alex and I, we go back already 5 or 6 years. And he is like a very good listener. I guess that's why we musically connect very well, because he is exactly on the page what we were just talking about, playing for the song and not against it, or kind of to shine, you know, to kind of make yourself shine over it, you know, because that would be wrong. Alex always kind of, and you hear that in Rush as well, plays to create an environment, you know, and I think, you know, that creates also an identity of becoming an iconic player, for example. Right. It's not just treading, it's just like,
well, he just shines in every part of the song is how he does it. It's not just his soul to shine.
Yeah,
the whole song is where he shines, as do all the members of the band, you know. That band. Man, so that's crazy.
That's kind of a thing. And I know Alex is well, he doesn't really want to do any more of really kind of the Rush based thing, or what kind of people think, you know, he should do, and he's absolutely not that way, you know. And look, he's doesn't have to do anything with age, but he is getting older. He doesn't want to tour anymore, and he just enjoys himself with this kind of stuff, and he loves ambient sounds. He loves an ambient environment, and if that's the thing that he wants right now, great. He's good at it. He's very good at it. So I think
he's put his time in, and the problem is, as we're talking, like it'd be like, oh my God, Alex playing with a drummer. Where's Geddy? Is there a new project? You know, like that he's not gonna. Those two guys are never gonna be able to avoid that. And any drummer that talks to them within 10 feet is gonna become a rumor on some news page, because no one wants to let it go. It's gone.
It's a blessing and a curse, isn't it? When you have a legacy as powerful as the guys from Rush have, but then you're absolutely right. And you have no idea how many times I got this when people heard like that Alex and I are working together on something. Immediately people would come in and go like, oh, that's a new Rush, or we should, you know, bring Geddy in, do Rush again. And so it's very delicate, and this is, I guess, why Alex and I just really are in this friendly environment where we kind of, you know, play for each other's music and or create something together, but in an absolute different kind of style.
I agree with you. I think Rush fans to do that to him is almost insulting, because they both said what they're going to do. They went through it. It's time to let him do other projects, like you. That's it.
Some people get it, and some really don't, you know.
That's not a fan to me, you know. And you couldn't do Rush anyhow, because it wouldn't be fair. Unless if they did like a one-off show and had a bunch of drummers, just like they're talking like Van Halen couldn't do a Van Halen tour, like Satriani. It would have to be who you played with.
Yeah.
It couldn't be like half the band with Satriani doing Betty. You could maybe do like a bunch of players on one night doing songs with different versions of bands as a tribute or a celebration. But you can't replace a core member like Neil or Eddie. No matter how good the musician is or how much friends, you just can't do it.
It is no, and it is an interesting theory or concept or also observation, I was positively shocked in the best possible way when a lot of people, told me you should kind of be the new Neil in Russia or something like that. When people say that, there was never anyone who said anything against it. And I guess that was like a very, very cool or encouraging quote to see like, hey, people actually understand and accept, this kind of stuff. And that was
You'd be
like,
good. You'd be good. It would be not even close your eyes listening to it. But it's about the concept of as an artist building what they built as a band.
Yeah, exactly. You can't. This is the thing. You can't really replace anyone in the Police or in Rush.
No. You can't put it with Zakk Wylde. You can put Zakk Wylde. You can't put him in Pantera. They're friends, but he's not Pantera. He's Zakk Wylde. You can do. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But I think it's also cool that people become very open-minded to that. And it's obviously I don't think it will happen. On the other hand, I think if Alex and Geddy would go like, hey, let's do a gig together, a special thing, I probably
that would be good.
I would actually do it.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, that would be great. But to me, Neil is, I mean, especially with Rush, when you listen to them as a trio, Neil has so much identity in that band, but more so not both playing, but also what people underrate or not see most of the time as a lyricist, because he's such an incredible lyricist
and a book writer. All those books he wrote.
And yes, absolutely. So that is just very deep.
He was the engine. On some level,
in a way, yes,
and it's crazy. We had sidetracked on it, but it's an interesting concept because no one really ever talks to the people that be like, you should do it. No one ever talks to them about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's an interesting concept about it, but you wouldn't have time because you have too many projects you're doing.
I have the Aristocrats and the thing Max Stein and Minnemann I'm doing with Randy Max Stein together, which is a fantastic new band that we formed. We have Mohini Day on bass with it, and Nick Virgilio as a utility guy, as he always would call himself, because he would play keyboards, guitar, sing, and also drums. We do like a double drum thing then live and stuff. So that's a great band, and I really like to concentrate more on that as well. So yeah, those are my main two bands right now that I'm.
And they both have releases coming out, so.
Yeah, right? The Aristocrats just have the orchestra album coming out. We're gonna release it on June 3rd, and the new Max Stein and Minnemann album is in the making. It is almost done. We're gonna release it probably by the end of the year, but we're gonna finish it in the next few months. So yeah, there's something on the horizon for. Yeah.
What about touring now? Because things have gotten kind of squirrely around the planet right now, but it's opening up.
Yeah,
you guys gonna tour?
Yeah, we're going to tour. So with the Aristocrats, we're going out now from July until October. We have like a 3-month tour coming up.
Nice.
It's going to be brutal. No, it's going to be great. And we do it. We start in North America. So we start here actually in the States, and then Canada, and then Mexico. So that's going to be our whole North American leg. And then early next year, we're planning on going. It's almost locked in. To Europe and then other places again, Asia, Southeast Asia. So nice. So touring starts. I've been just doing some gigs with
Max Stein and Minnemann. I'm sorry. What are you going to play for the Aristocrats? What are you guys going to play? Because you can't do the orchestra thing.
No, we can't do the orchestra thing. We do our music, and then also we incorporate some new songs from the next studio album.
Now, when is that? What are you guys aiming for that one? Just next year.
I think that studio album will probably going to be really probably in 2023. That's when that album is coming out. We're still in the writing process, but yeah, that stuff comes together then pretty quickly, because each of us writing 3 songs and then getting together, learning the songs, playing them, building the chemistry, and then we record, mostly in a live setting with a few overdubs here and there. So I think it's safe to say that in 2023 we're gonna release that album. Obviously, we can't interfere now with the orchestra release. No. So
that's interesting. Last thing I want to cover, thank you for your time today. It's on my other screen here. I have is the webpage for the Aristocrats. It's a really good website, and I like to talk about them sometimes because not all websites are up to date or worked on.
Yeah,
this one's pretty fun. Under your media, I think actually is it. Media, is that what you have? You have like stems in there, right?
Yeah.
Musicians. I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, isn't it? So you can.
It's really cool.
Great. Yeah, I think you have to come up like with refreshing things, that especially we attract so many musos, so many
Right, yeah.
people who appreciate this kind of stuff. I guess it's also like a little bit of testimony, or how to say, what would be the right word for that? And an angle, to kind of make your followers happy, and also, especially in the music world, it's also really, you see that people care more than you sometimes think they would, especially in days like, of Spotify and Apple Music and all of that. You can see that the hardcore fans who listen, the audio files, they still love high-res downloads, or like, special packages, limited editions. And so I guess, with stamps and all this kind of stuff, it's a pretty cool concept to a souvenir,
Well, I think people like it because they can play. I think it adds to them liking a song more. Like I do shows when we talk, we'll do like an album breakdown of something, right?
Yeah.
And then afterwards, people write in to that artist and they'll say, I love this album even more now because I know this about it.
Yeah.
So as a musician, if they're playing those songs, they're like, which I always like when I started learning guitar like 5 years ago, I was like, oh, I did everything else. I did other music stuff, but I started playing guitar. I'm like, I should play guitar. I should try it.
Yeah.
But you start playing, even the simplest songs, you're like, oh, that's how that's put together. That's the progression. That's kind of neat.
Yeah. Interesting, right?
It puts a whole other spin on it for you to kind of fall in love with it again.
Yeah. Agreed. Thanks for clocking that. Yeah, that's cool.
which I appreciate. When I saw that, I was like, that's really great for the website. I mean, you really,
yeah,
you are a musician's band, so.
Yeah, we really are. And it's kind of funny when you also play live, with the Aristocrats. It's you see the audience is very knowledgeable. You see people like singing along every little detail, or kind of waiting for a certain thing to happen that they already kind of know. It's I love it. But and it's actually, to me, also the way I would like to have an audience, kind of to be aware and not just kind of dancing around and not caring what we do, but just kind of having obviously we want everyone to have a good time, but you know what it is, I played sometimes shows, with like artists or commercial artists where nobody really cares who the drummer is or the guitar player or whatnot. Right. Just play it, and count maybe.
Kind of disposable. It's more background noise. Some people don't listen to music in the background.
And you wait for your fee and then it's done, and that's exactly not what the Aristocrats are all about, or the same thing I'm doing with Randy neither. We really play for the music, for our followers, and that makes actually hopefully them and us actually happy. And that's really what that should be all about. And so we do like it when people are knowledgeable and go like, oh, cool, they played that song, that part of it got extended, or this, like the geekiness about it is beautiful.
I think the only thing I can say, not even complain, you need to put more stems up on your website for people. I just don't think you have enough on there yet.
Oh, true, right? That was a lot of work,
I'm just harassing you. I want to thank you for coming on, man.
Thank you. And like I always say, it's like, with the music, especially with the Aristocrats, or the thing with Randy I'm doing is like we play, the audience becomes part of the band, so to speak, especially when you play live. The reaction and the energy you get incorporates into the music. And I think that's really the beauty of what happens here. And so, and I thank you for having me in your interview and for the. I
love your music. You're one of the bands that I have to like listen to. I can't do it like when I'm doing something like I'm focusing. It's not like I can't listen to your music and work because I get you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I got to go elsewhere. I can't be focusing on something else because I always tend to listen too much of the music and there's so much in it, Yeah.
And there is a lot of information sometimes, isn't it? Or detail, let's put it that way.
But it's good. It's just good. I'm saying it's not disposable. I can't just listen to the background on an elevator. I'm into it. I'm committed. When I'm going to listen to Aristocrats or listen to See Within or something, I'm like, I'm in.
True. That's good.
That's awesome, man. I want to thank you. This has been great.
Thank you for the interview. That was fantastic.